Looks like we're having a little bit of issue here. Maybe we need to grab the correct screens. Screen capture. Add source. That's not supposed to be up. Wrong game. Let's add a new source. Main, add source, screen one, railroader. There you go. Screen capture, add source. Get clicked off of here. Add source, add a new source. All right. All right. Looks a little odd because we've got both screens up, but at least now you'll be able to see what's going on. And we're going to try and see if we got an overlay, but don't know. Single player. Let's see about the overlay. It's been a long time since I streamed. I think it's actually the first time I've streamed on. Um, I think it's the first time I've actually streamed on um, YouTube. So looking for my overlay is Alt Control Shift that one. Okay, let's see what happens here. Alt Control Shift that one. There we go. That is good enough for me. And overlay. Game overlay. And let's see about resetting that position. Okay, good enough. So, for those of you who haven't seen it before, game's been out since December in early access by Giraffe Lab LLC. It's a transitional era game covering the Murphy branch of the Asheville subdivision of North Carolina. The code says, after looking into it a little bit, the code says the game date is actually April 1st, 1943 on the first day. And then it just counts day from there, like number of days. Pretty straightforward, pretty easy game. So we're going to go through starting up a new game. I do have some mods in here, so some things aren't going to look the same as if you pick up the game yourself. I highly do recommend that, excuse me, if you do pick up this game, it's something that you play with other people. It's much, much better when you have other people. But generally, people that you trust. The game is it does have issues when you're allowing for derailments and stuff like that. It does negatively affect you. And not only that, it's just much more fun when you're working with people instead of Al. Al is AI is it's special some days. So we're gonna set up a railroad name here. We're gonna call ourselves the Ontario Northlander. And no, because that's a real railroad. Let's not do that. Let's call it uh, Percy's Rail Services or Bingle Bottom Rail Services, which would make us the BRS. and our company mode in East Whittier Start. They took out other starts a while back, something to do with how the map was progressing. So it is what it is. And our save will be our Twitch stream. And we'll go ahead and load up. And as you can see, we're getting the game fired up. And we've got our second monitor here. All right. So starts out with a basic tutorial. There's a few things it expects you to do. We're going to speed through this as fast as we can. We'll read it, and then we'll just go to town and actually do this stuff. East Whittier after the flood. Now, there was a historical flood, and oddly enough, the game puts us at April 1st, 1943, but the flood that occurred was after the Nantahala Dam was built, or um, somebody can correct my pronunciation on that. The Nantahala or Nanahala Dam was built and flooded and wiped out some of the infrastructure downstream. Now, you'll note a couple of things as we're progressing through this. We'll talk about them and continue on. The Atlantic Railway might not have thought this area was worth their time, but now it's all in our hands. We've got 1.5 good engines out of the deal, and the Roundhouse in Bryson is in good shape. Trouble is, doesn't do us much good with the bridge at Ella still out. This yard at East Whittier will be our home for now. It's got a yard that doubles as the interchange with the Atlantic Railway to the east, and the engine service facilities, the coal conveyor, water column, and engine shed are more than enough for our current needs. We can reposition the window if we want. We can close it, yada, 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 but we can click on the next button. Before we get to running any passengers or freight, we have a few things to attend to around the shop. Here's the plan for today. Get familiar with the engine and take on coal and water. Rescue the derailed locomotive, order more coal, and take the hopper to the interchange. We also have to run a passenger train to Whittier and Ella, west of here, as well as set up our first freight contracts with customers. We're going to get started with by getting familiar with how to look and move around the world. That's your standard ASW and jump, obviously, bounces. You have 2 default point of view settings and then a free scroll to change your field of view on the fly. 1 and 2 are your first person and second person views. Now, they are not tied together. So you can set up a camera shot, go into that position, and then you can actually see, where am I? I've moved myself to there. Yeah. So you can see you can actually separately move around. It's not a thing. You're not locked in. So there I am standing beside the rail. And it's important to remember that because sometimes you can actually set up your camera ahead of yourself and switch some things or whatever. It helps. Shift runs, control moves the overhead camera faster, which can be a pain in the butt. So we're going to go ahead and board the engine, which is just outside the engine shed. And because I'm playing alone, we're going to be using OWL a fair bit. So we're going to go ahead and run over to the engine, which, as they said, shift key allows for, and we're going to go ahead and get fired up here. So we do have a couple of points we can climb on this locomotive. Not really on the front, but there is between the cab and the tender. We can climb up there. There's a ladder on the back side of the tender. There's no rear ladder, but that's all right. We don't need it. So we're going to go ahead and climb up. Because Al's going to be driving, we're going to go ahead and climb into the co-pilot seat. Q and E allow you to lean. You can click on labeled items to open and close them, you know, the usual suspects. Okay. Engines and railroaders have four major controls: the throttle, reverser, independent, and train brake. In the future, I think they plan on expanding some of that, adding some more things, but again, that's future plans that are a ways out yet. We're not worried about those. The first thing the tutorial wants to cover is the brakes. And obviously, if you know anything about locomotives, you know, or sorry, about trains, you know that the locomotive has a separate a separate brake system from the rest of the train. However, the train brake affects the whole train, independent brake, just the train itself. Um, it just changes the way the valves are open and closed for the braking system. Now, on the locomotive, um, this being 1943, air brakes are a thing, knuckle couplers are a thing, and have been for a while. Um, Obviously, a progression of the Janey coupler and so on and so forth. Um, the unlocking pins are not modeled, as you can see. You can see where they should be, but they're not. This would be your cut bar, but obviously it's not. Your tender, you can't really see how it's connected. You just know that there's a drawbar under there and it's connected. Some of the bigger ones have stokers, and you can see the stoker is connected. And on the rear here, you have your cutout bar, your cut bar, and again, the locking pin is not um, it's not animated. But what is animated is your air hoses, and they are really short, and there is no tie-ups, so there's no netting and tying any of that. So we're going to go ahead and release the brakes. Brakes are off. Then they talk about the throttle and reverser. Steam engines, you can think of them like a manual car or a standard transmission car. Down here we've got our cylinder cocks. Here we've got our independent brake, our train brake. We have our reverser and our throttle. The reverser is like your gearbox in your car. The closer to the center position, the lower the torque, but the higher the speed. You're kind of in that trade-off, power and torque. So you're going to have lots of power in terms of speed power, but you're not going to have a lot of pull or rotational force. That's more your go fast button. The throttle is controlling how much steam you're letting into the regulator, which is letting into your pistons, which are here, your driver pistons. Um, this locomotive is a kind of average setup. It is a 260, and you can tell that by the single axle pilot truck. You have three axles of drivers and then nothing under the rear of the cab. Tenders do not count towards the white numbering system or the white identification system for locomotives. So we go ahead, we select our locomotive, which we've already done, which brings up our HUD controls, the BRS2 over here. And we have our brake displays. That's these two gauges. Over the top of our GUI, we have our braking display, which shows the status of the brakes in the train. Okay, so in their current status, brakes are fully released. If it goes gray, we've derailed, so on and so forth. We have our bell. We have a horn with two stages, which we can quill between them. We can quill the whistle by holding V and moving the mouse up and down. We can also set our headlight. We can set it for the front dim, the front full, the rear full, or the rear dim. And on this locomotive, we don't have a light on the tender, so it's not going to show up. 0 and 9 put us on an exterior view, both at the head end of the train and the tail end, depending on which one we're looking at. And then Control 0 lets us to jump from the ground straight into a seat, an available seat in the train. So the first thing they want us to do is top up the tender. We can check the tender status by just hovering over it, and you can see that we're half full on coal, half full on water. So we're going to go ahead and set our reverser full forward, and we're going to start accelerating. Actually, yeah, we'll let Al do the driving here. And we're going to go ahead and verify switch is green, which means they're normalized. They're going in their default position, which is going to allow the train through. Check that we've still got time to get across. And we're going to come over here and flip our switch. Now, we're going to go ahead and brake. And we're going to let the locomotive crawl ahead. Okay. And we're going to open up this hatch. Okay, so I actually missed my mark a little bit. Just push her back. And there we are. Okay, I'm going to rotate the water column. And it will automatically drop if we're close enough for it to start filling, which we are. So while that happens, we're going to talk about a couple of things. There are some things that we got to remember when we're operating on the railroad, especially if we're operating with other people. Basic signals, like for instance, if we're going to head forward, 2 blasts, 1 for stopped, and if we were to reverse, it'd be 3 blasts. Okay, nothing major there. Below 5 miles an hour, we should be using the bell, and then we don't need to use the horn as much. The bell acts as our warning signal. Some things to note for our map. We're using the map enhancer mod, so you're going to be seeing that the map has accesses to the switches, etc., stuff like that. We're going to be using that a fair bit. So it's pretty straightforward. All right, so what do they want us to do? They want us to come and get water, which we just did. Now that we're filled up, we can go ahead and close the hatch. Water, obviously, is how we generate steam, coal. Now, the coal conveyor has a little bit left in it, about 1,000 pounds, quarter ton, or sorry, a half a ton. So we're going to go ahead and pull up to coal conveyor. There we are. And we'll click on the coal chute, and that should lower it. All right. There we go. So you can see we got 3.5 tons of coal. So half a ton of coal. All right. Now let's see about rescuing our other engine. So we looked at the map, figured out where we needed to be. And got all that sorted out. So let's go down and check it out. So we can very quickly teleport using Control T, or we can just use the train, which we're going to do in this case, and we're going to head over there. So I'll go ahead and let's set us into road mode, yard speed at 15 miles an hour. Thank you, sir. And we're going to go ahead and hang out on the outside of the locomotive. Oops, shit. Fell off. Let me on. Oh. And then I'll go ahead and slow her down to 10. And then a little bit more down to 5. And we're going to walk ahead of the train here. He's going to go ahead and go past us. And then we're going to throw it in reverse. I said reverse. Thank you, sir. The other thing too is you can see the cardinal directions on the map as we turn around at the top of the screen. It's a nice little feature to have, kind of keep you oriented as to which way you're facing. So we're approaching locomotive 1, which is off the track. Which isn't a great situation for it to be in. Okay, that'll do. I'll hold her there. Now we get to exhibit our superhuman strength, because we are superhuman. Because of course we are. So we're going to go ahead and hop over here. And holding Shift R, we can pull the locomotive back onto the track. Okay, now to avoid damage when coupling up, we need to be below 5 miles an hour. Al's pretty good for that, so we're just going to ask him to reverse back, maximum of 10 cars. And we're going to use the yard mode for that. We're going to stand here and wait for him to come back. Come on back, Al. And kerchunk. That'll do. He's going to come to a stop. And we go ahead and connect the glad hands. Now, you'll notice that I shift click and the angle cocks open up. That applies brakes to the whole train. So I'm going to go ahead and hang out on the back of Unit 1 and have Al pull us up using the road mode, which allows for long movements. I've also got the better UI, which is giving me that 1K button. That allows me to move the train forward a fair bit. Whereas road mode just goes until it hits a opposing switch or a fusee or anything of that sort. So we're going to go ahead and just ride it out here. And we're just going to ask Al to slow down a little bit as he comes around past the switch. A little bit more. Okay. Wait until the locomotive passes. And then we're going to request that he operate in reverse. And we're going to put this back into the engine shed. Now, one thing to note, I can hover over the tender here. We know that it's empty of coal and water, so we're going to have to tag or tow it in for coal and water later on. So we're going to take it to the shed. So it says inside the shed, change to first-person camera, get on the ground between your tender and the damaged engine, click the coupler, move your engine forward a few yards to leave the damaged engine in the shed. So that's what we're going to do. Now, one thing I missed, and I'm not sure what part of this we missed, or I missed, but it never mentioned putting the engine into repair mode. Yeah, it doesn't actually mention putting the engine into repair mode. And that's where a lot of people end up with a locomotive sitting in their repair shed, wondering why it's not being repaired. So we're going to go ahead and click on BRS1. We're going to go to Equipment. And we're going to repair destination, East Whittier Repair Track. We're going to uncouple this. And we're going to go ahead and tell Al to move Unit 2 forward 5 cars. Just get him out of the shed. And I think he's operating under the presumption that a car is 40 feet. So that'll move him forward about 200 feet. Okay, we're going to go ahead and leave out here. And we're going to hire some shop crew. And that's going to lead us to our next bit of info. Let me just make sure you can see that on the stream. You can, great. Okay, so on the stream, we're going to go over to the Locations tab. We're going to find the East Whittier Interchange. The engine service. And we're going to hire, I'm going to hire 4 guys. They're going to do the work nice and quick that way. And it's only $60 a day, which is the delivery of approximately 1 car, which we're going to do more than that every day for sure. So we're not going to worry about that. Presently, we have no shop crew. Hire 1 or 2 shop crew work on a daily basis, so our new worker will start work on this engine at midnight. You can hire more if you want to get the repairs done faster. Keep in mind that the crew is still paid even if there isn't any work to do. Waybills are an important part. And the interchange is currently served daily at 6. So we're going to change some things. We're going to change our time multiplier and our interchange serve time to 4 a.m. Okay. So railroad fuel service. We need to adjust the coaling tower. Well, we need to get the coaling tower some coal. So let's take our mogul here, Unit 2. And we're just going to ask him to back up a car. Reverse 1 car length. Because currently he's sitting on the switch, and I need him off here. So we're going to use this hopper, this one here, and we're going to request more coal. To do that, we're going to go to Operations. When it is loaded, it's going to come to the East Whittier coal loader, which is this. And when it's empty, we're going to have it take to the interchange. And we've already set those. And now if we hit tab, you can see that its destination is set for the East Whittier Interchange to Carolina Fuel Company. Great. Now we need to connect the engine and the brake line to the hopper. But first, before we can even do that, we need to set the switch to come down this way. Now you can set it from quite a distance. If you're looking for some realism, you can walk up and do it, from close. And you can start to see already how having more than one person in a game makes things faster. And that's just with one train. Can you imagine running multiple trains? Because that is a thing. So we're going to go ahead and tell them to come forward 5 cars. And while he comes over here, I'm going to grab myself another drink of some wonderful no-name cola, or not no-name, but not one of the mainstream brands. Let's put it that way. Oh, not quite enough. Let's come forward a couple more cars. And connect. Way too hard, but Al tends to do that. So we're going to go ahead and tell them to come back. You know what? 10 cars. Should have space for 10 cars. And that'll get them clear of that switch. And once again, we're just going to ride the ladder. And we'll tell them to stop. Stop. That'll do. Forward 10. And we're going to go ahead and flip this switch. Okay. He's clear for less than a car. We're going to move him back. And we're going to go ahead and come back 20 cars. And since we're going for a nice long run, we'll go ahead and hop aboard. Open the window, stick our head out, and watch behind us. Now, normally this seat would be occupied by a fireman who would be focused on keeping an eye on the boiler, its temperatures, pressures, water levels, like that water sight gauge should be appropriately filled. There would be a stoker who'd be sitting here shoveling coal into the firebox. And then, of course, it becomes a very tight space as you get more people in there. We're going to come back 2 more cars because we're kind of tight to the front there. We want to make sure that we have sufficient room to maneuver around. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and disconnect. Okay. And we're going to go ahead and with everything disconnected. We're going to hop in here, and we're just going to back up down the yard. So we're going to set the road speed in reverse, 15 mile an hour. Okay, and 35. And we're coming to a couple of switches. They're set against. We're going to lower the speed to 5. And I don't like the dismounting. It's a little bit jumpy still. It'd be nice if the ladders were a little more, I don't know, magnetic, I guess, would be one way to phrase it. So the normal position for this switch has it go down the back row. We don't want to be down the back row yet. We need the switch lined with us. And we may need a little bit of extra room, so we're just going to set the mainline switch and we're going to guard it. Now there should not be anything else on the line, on the main line, except for us, but for now, we're just going to make the appropriate protections. For Unit 2, and Unit 2 can go ahead and stop, because he's clear of that first switch. We're going to go ahead and move him ahead. And then once his wheels are clear, we can go ahead and throw this switch back. And if we keep the speed low, we can just leisurely walk up and catch the train. And now we're aboard, we'll set the speed for higher. So some things that we're going to try and look at, we're going to talk about some of the things that would happen on transitional era railroads, some of the kind of importance of the transitional periods. Now, I'm not by any means a foamer. Excuse me if you've watched any of my content in the past, either here on YouTube or over on Twitch, then you'll know that I'm a simulation gamer, as well as I was a ultralight pilot for a while there. It's kind of my hobby is the simulation side of things, the business aspect, all that fun stuff. So we'll kind of analyze some things from that perspective. I may have some history details. Either I've researched and gotten faulty information or not. Could be the case. We'll see as that goes through. And we'll just run some general operations on our little short line railroad here and see how we make out. But for now, we'll just do a quick run up through Whittier, up to Ella, and then on back. We're going to go ahead and send him back 10 cars to hook up to the open platform coach car. Now this is a car that was built by the Pullman Car Company. I believe this one is, I want to say 1893. Forward 5. I forgot to flip a switch. Get used to that because that's going to happen lots. That's actually my most common mistake, is forgetting to check my points. But yeah, the car that we're coupling up to is, if I remember correctly, 1893. And we can go ahead and check that. It would be the, yeah, 1893, no, Pullman 1900 open platform coach car. It's a decent people hauler with 60 seats. It's got open platforms on both ends. Oops, reverse 5. Come on back. It's got platforms on both sides. The model doesn't have any lighting, although there's word that it used to. It's wood paneled, 4 axles, traditional style axle bearings. So we have our journal boxes here. I'm going to go ahead and tell him to come back another 2 because he's not going to make the couple otherwise. And we're just going to make a couple of adjustments here. Go ahead and connect. Okay, first thing we're going to do is we're going to adjust these class lights. So now they're showing that they're not the tail of the train because the tender is no longer the ender, or the end of the train. We don't currently have a timetable, so we're going to set our lights as green for extra service. And we're going to go ahead and connect up our glad hands, and we're going to open the angle cock. Now we're going to go across to the other side. And we're going to open the angle cock there. But that's buried back a little bit. And this is why you want to get used to using the shift couple method. There we go. Because sometimes you cannot see the angle cocks when you want to. Okay, we'll go ahead and close up the gates to lock ourselves in. We'll take a quick little walk through the car. You can see that it's all set up. Okay. So now we have to go out past the sawmill, come down the main line to the downtown of Whittier. Okay. And then we'll set the passenger car up for picking up the passengers in Whittier. So let's go ahead and take that little ride up the line, and we'll get ourselves set up. We'll also use the we're going to use the map mod this time to show it off a little bit, the map enhancer mod. And we're going to reduce this minimum stop duration down to 1 minute, because we don't need to sit around for too long. One of the things we can do is we're going to make sure that we get our switches set accordingly. We're going to want to come back into the track we're in now. So that's fine. We're going to just kind of ease our way up the line, open up the switch ahead of us, go ahead and select our locomotive, click the follow mode, and now the map will follow along with our current locomotive. A few things we'll show off in the meantime. I'm going to go ahead and close this up, and I'm going to hit R. R brings up our engine roster. This is a new feature as of the last update to Railroader. Gives us a nice, overview of what's going on with our trains from the locomotive perspective. It's, again, fantastic quality of life improvement that they made for us. We have our console, which allows us to do a few things. One thing we're going to do while we're moving, now that I think about it, we're going to go ahead and put the game into sandbox mode. And if you want to get a more realistic feeling for your brakes, as they are air brakes, if you do set _ braking force 1.6, that's going to give you a braking force that's a little bit more in line with air brakes, or at least with the way the air brakes should grab. And then we're going to go ahead and put the mode back into company mode. While that's happening and we're making our way down the track, I'm going to show you a couple other mods that we've got installed. We've got one that allows us to actually purchase the baggage car and the open platform work car that were not available otherwise. We have some tender swaps here. Consolidation with the clear vision consolidation replaces the tender to lower the tender of the consolidation so that you can actually see over it. We've got various alternatives to each of the locomotives. They're all tender swaps. The power unit portion is the same. You'll notice I have multiple EMD switchers. These switchers are all edits by me. They're not perfect. They're still in the adjustment phase. You'll see the GP7s, GP9 is obviously a default one. You see GP9 Mountain Goat, which is one that we picked up from CSX, from their server. We have the passenger coaches, and then we have some alternatives to the observation car that give us the bonus, but kind of keep the train looking a little more uniform. Then we've got some additional pulpwood cars. We've got the gondola, and then we've got a flat and 2 different gondolas for logs. And that about covers the additionals, although I'm not sure if you noticed, we also have Green Ninja's F7s. Fantastic add-on to have in the game at this point. Again, that's transitional era diesel. I know here in Canada we used them for both freight and passenger operations. They were fantastic for that. For freight operations, you'd use them in an AA or ABBA configuration. For passenger operations, we typically use them in AD configurations, and then just ran around the train when necessary, or used a Y to turn them around. Oh, right, Al, stop, Al, stop. We forgot something. This is one of those instances I wanted to point out where Al is not hyper intelligent. You can't just let him drive for all of eternity because he doesn't always pay. He doesn't know what you want. He just goes until he finds his next instruction. And unfortunately, I just told him to drive forward. Didn't tell him for how long. This is Whittier Station. Whittier is one of the larger towns that we're operating near. Go ahead and back up just a little bit more. Okay. Just a little bit more out. Line up the car a little bit better. That'll do. Okay. And this is the center port of passenger operations. Al's pretty good about running passengers, as long as he knows where he's going. So if you pull up the inspector of the passenger car, you can select where he's going to. So we're going to load up passengers going to Ella Station. And if we talk to the ticket agent here, we can see that we have about 20 passengers going up to Ella. And we'll just wait for those to load up. And then once they're loaded up, we'll whistle our departure and head on up the line. Oops. Anyways. So with that, I'm going to call it, and we'll pick up where we left off the next time. Um, should be nice and easy. We're going to take care of some passenger stuff and then head on the next stream. We'll start up our first interchange. We'll do some trade overs and stuff like that. Should be fairly straightforward. Should be a nice, easy, relaxed time. For the first few streams, we're going to go for like an hour or two, and then later on, we might, like once a week, do a much longer stream. Um, some of the things we plan on doing on the channel, we're going to be doing some Railroader, we're going to be doing some Train Life, and after the 22nd of the month, so in about 5 days or so, hopefully we'll be doing the new DLC packages from um, SimRail, which covers Polish rail services. We'll do some other games as well from time to time. We'll see how we make out. But all in all, it should be a nice change to things. It's been, like I said, it's been a long time since I was streaming on any sort of a regular basis. We're gonna try to do, uh, once a day, maybe once a day or twice a week, or well, I don't know. We'll see how we make out. But they'll all be live. Um, I don't really like doing the pre-recorded and edit and all that fun stuff. What you see is what you get. What happens happens. Like my phone just ringing there now. So yeah, hopefully we'll see you soon. Thanks so much for tuning in for our first portion of the first day. And you'll notice our in-game days are going to take a long time to get through. Um, it's a 24-hour thing. So all right, with that, we're going to go ahead and save the game here. It was 10:07. Next time we log in, it'll be 10:07, and we'll continue on. Thanks, and look forward to talking to you next time.